Hello, my name is Emmeline Bosico, and today I'll be discussing my research titled Analyzing the Relationship Between Teacher Pedagogical Content Knowledge and Student Academic Outcomes. The agenda, of course, will be that we will discuss the research approach and purpose. We'll go into our research question, talk about the problem statement, what precipitated the research in the first place, our research design, and finally, the advantages and limitations of our methodology. So for the research approach and purpose, the approach that I'm taking is a quantitative research design. Now, quantitative analysis in this research is going to define the relationship between teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student performance in core subjects of math and ELA. And so we're going to collect quantitative data on teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student performance in math and ELA assessments through their scores. And of course, they will undergo a rigorous statistical analysis using correlation coefficients and regression analysis. Now, correlation coefficient measures the strength and direction of a relationship between two variables, while regression analysis does exactly the same with multiple variables. And of course, the study's focus is we're exploring or trying to characterize the relationship between teachers' content knowledge and pedagogical expertise, how it influences their instructional quality, and also influences how students understand the topic, and ultimately how how they perform in their any culminating or summative assessments. Now, of course, the research objectives is to identify links or explore the relationship between all these different factors, and also explore whether there are variations in the depth of their PCK and how that impacts the student outcomes. And clearly the significance would be that it's going to enhance professional development, teacher training programs. Once we understand the relationship between pedagogical content knowledge and student performance. The research question is, what is the relationship between teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student performance in math and ELA assessments? Now, we are going to collect data for both the independent and the dependent variables. Now, the independent variable, we are going to collect data through surveys, which is the mathematics assessment and teaching and learning, and the language arts teacher knowledge survey. We're also going to collect data on both teacher and student demographics and characteristics. Finally, the dependent variables will be student assessment outcomes from both interim or end of trimester assessments and weekly assessments. Now, the problem statement, what precipitated this research? So, my charter network is currently undergoing a budget crisis due to a precipitous drop in student enrollment. Okay, and because the number of students that are enrolled dropped, it led to a decrease in budget where we had to significantly reduce our teaching faculty and our leadership. Now, because it's a charter schools, we have higher accountability measures than typical public schools. And unfortunately, our charter network has failed to meet the benchmarks put forth through our charter agreement. So our license has been conditionally renewed. However, if we do not turn around in 5 years, we might risk closure. So the problem of practice concerns the student underachievement in core subjects of math and ELA in grades 3 through 5, which are the testing grades in elementary school in the state of New York. Now, this is the outcomes from the first trimester interim assessment or first trimester assessment. And as you can see, 80% of the students are scoring at a level 2 or below, so that they are below grade level. And within that 80%, 50% of students has garnered the lowest possible score of 1, which means we have about half of the students in each grade that are absolutely completely below grade level. Now, the previous research has shown, and I'm going to make sure that all pops up, Previous research has shown that there's a positive correlation or positive relationship between teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student academic outcomes. And of course, when there are variations in teachers' pedagogical content knowledge, um, there's also variations in student performance outcomes as well. So the research design that we're going to use is the correlational research design. Okay. And of course, as we recall, correlations, it measures the strength and direction of relationships between variables. And what we are trying to do, whoops, I should not have went back. Okay. Now, the advantages of correlational study is that it's good for examining associations between variables without implying causality. Just because there is a relationship, it doesn't mean that one causes the other. It allows researchers to explore associations between variables in a real world context, and it also shows the relationship between variables without the need for extreme experimental manipulation, which makes it more applicable and valid. And also, it makes the results of correlational studies has more transferability as well. So the research variables and our hypothesis. Obviously, the independent variable is the pedagogical content knowledge of teachers, which we will be measuring through surveys that I had mentioned before. And the dependent variables are the student performance in math and ELA assessments. So quantitative design, quantitative correlational design has uh, two different hypotheses. There's a null hypothesis, which implies that there are no relationship between the variables, and the alternative hypothesis, which says that there is a relationship. So we have three alternative hypotheses: that there's a positive correlation exists between teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student performance in math and ELA, and that student performance in math and ELA assessments improves with higher levels of teachers' pedagogical content knowledge, and finding that there are variations in student performance across teachers based on their levels of pedagogical content knowledge. So we expect to see that positive relationship between teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and student performance. We also expect to see specifically um, a positive a positive upward trajectory in student outcomes when teachers show higher levels of PCK, and of course variations in student performance will be predicted by teachers' levels of pedagogical content knowledge. So the setting is in it's in a charter management school in a diverse urban area. The majority of students are Hispanic and African American, as are the teachers. It's a high socioeconomic diversity area. And of course, the classroom sizes are small enough that it is that data collection and observation could be very effective. Okay. And as for the teachers are predominantly African American. They hold graduate degrees, and they all have at least 3 years of experience, and they have been with the students since the beginning of the academic year. Methods and procedures. So as it stands, we currently adhere to instructional systems, which are as follows. Every week, teachers must submit a week at a glance or a WAG document for each lesson of the instructional week. This document includes the unit and lesson details, standards, alignments, objective, and sequence of activities. And also, teachers engage on a weekly basis professional learning communities where they review student data and strategize instruction. The intervention measures will be as follows. In addition to the WAG completions, teachers will do the three actions. They will complete student exemplars where they will actually do the work that they expect students to do during instruction in order to showcase exemplary work and clarify their learning objectives, and and encourage or facilitate students to self-assess and also for them to assess each other. Teachers will also plan for misconceptions where they will anticipate what they know students will not be able to understand, and they will formulate questions or prompts or strategies to either preempt those misconceptions or clarify them. And also, they'll create a success criteria, which is a map that we can provide students so that they can self assess and also to guide their learning. During professional learning communities, we will take everything that we created in the WAG, and during those weekly professional learning communities, teachers will engage in teachbacks where they will pretend as if they're teaching their class to their peers. They'll present the lesson plans so that they can receive feedback from their peers to refine their teaching methods. And also, that's going to facilitate the process of anticipating misconceptions. Now, the data will be collected. Of course, as I mentioned before, we'll be collecting demographics and characteristics of both the students and the teachers. To assess pedagogical content knowledge, the teachers will receive two surveys, both before the intervention and after the intervention. So, the ELA teachers will receive the Language Arts Teacher Knowledge Survey, which assesses ELA teachers' comprehension of literacy instruction and language arts pedagogy. And math teachers will receive the Mathematics Assessment for Teaching and Learning Survey, which engages teachers' understanding of mathematical concepts, proficiency in employing those strategies, and effectiveness in identifying and remedying student challenges in mathematics. And of course, data collection from students will come from their interim or end of trimester assessment and also their weekly assessments. And of course, no discussion about methodology is complete without the ethical considerations. Obviously, we want our participants, both teacher and student, to have informed consent. They have a clear understanding of the study's purpose, procedures, risks, and benefits, and that the consent to participate is completely voluntary, and they don't feel like they're under duress or being manipulated. And of course, they have to understand that they can withdraw at any point in time without any explanation. We also want to minimize harm for both the teachers and the students. Um, we do not want to, I do not want to cause any undue stress or duress to the students, to the teachers, and also and I'm going to preempt or avoid that by integrating data collection as much into teachers' already pre-scheduled established routines so I can minimize any additional stress or undue duress. And last but not least, of course, we want to ensure that we have anonymity and confidentiality, that student assessment scores are dissociated from their names, and that we use ID numbers. That the data is stored and transmitted and disposed in such a way that it ensures that it secures or safeguards their participant information, and of course. Um, we want to make sure that the data is completely anonymous and that there's no way to identify which student produced what outcome. And last but not least, we have our reflection piece. Now, of course, I discussed a little bit earlier about the advantages of using a correlational studies, but I want to talk a little bit about the limitations. Of course, the advantages are, you are objectively measuring something using numerical data, so it's free of any kind of, it could be free, it's free from researchers' bias. Findings could also be generalized to larger populations because the um, the data collection and analysis is very quick, and it's effective, and it's very efficient. Also, because quantitative correlational analysis is so superstructured, it's easier to replicate. And obviously, with statistical analysis, you can articulate what the patterns and trends are in both large and small data sets. But the limitations is that with correlational and with quantitative research designs, there is a potential to oversimplify complex phenomena also, and it might actually limit our insight into what is actually happening, or how we define what the phenomena is. And of course, as we usually say with correlation does not imply causation. So it's very hard to establish how how close how close or closely related the two variables are. And also it kind of limits our the richness with which we understand what phenomena is actually taking place. So in order to combat the limitations of correlational analysis, there also needs to be a further exploration of the variables that incorporates the experience of the participants who are participating in the study. And that could be remedied with the use of some qualitative data analysis, such as observations or interviews with the participants.